Well, I owe a big thanks for this award to, first of all, to my family, who've oddly enough always encouraged me when I went to school. Don't worry about your grades, just learn lots and have fun. And I think I managed all of those things. And also to my wife, who's never let me do anything less than my very best. But I've been asked, actually, to give the eulogy for the School of Occupational Therapy's class of 2008. And they had a short but eventful life, and you can imagine my surprise at such a request, but I was honored, just the same. You know, you could always count on the class of 2008 to keep you on your toes. There was always a new change, an issue, or a questioning of the status quo. Change was the only constant. Probably the biggest change was after their first year, when the entire school was relocated to another town. And they had to settle into a new building that was still being constructed around them. But they embraced the change and they adapted. And this was followed closely by another upheaval. There was a significant turnover in our faculty. And now there were rumors that some of the faculty members were driven away by the dearly departed, of which I now speak. But I want to reassure you that those rumors are not true with that. And that although the class of 2008 may not always have been respectful of their professors with that, they always valued their professors. I remember early in our second year when one of the first tests was handed back, and as the first professor proceeded to go through and identify and analyze all of the right and wrong answers, the class simultaneously went through and identified all of the right and wrong questions. Question 7 was poorly worded and could be interpreted in 2 ways. And while most had answered none of the above to question 16, a significant minority had conjured up special circumstances in which answer C could be correct. You had to admire it because they proceeded to change the test after having taken it. By the time they were done, it was about 10% shorter and everyone's grade had improved. The class had become aware that change was an inherent part of life in the School of Occupational Therapy. And they'd begun to embrace it. It wasn't that it was a bad or poorly written test, but as I said, there had been a significant turnover in the faculty, and this particular professor was a bit new and, well, buckled to the pressure. If you ask the faculty, do you hope that your students will go on to become agents for change? They would answer emphatically, yes, we would be so proud. But I don't think they expected their work to take root so soon and for their creation to turn on them. But in terms of major changes, I'm proud to have been closely involved with one of the class's finest moments. I remember fondly a time when, earlier this year, in fact, one of our professors, Tiffany Bogus, distributed an assignment on a 3-page handout as complex and detailed and explained the objectives and the process that we would go through to accomplish them. And the class analyzed the task. They compared it to their strengths and weaknesses, their past experiences, and then recommended a total change in the assignment, scrapping almost half of it for an alternative. To her credit, Tiffany took it in stride, and we made some positive changes, and I'd like to think that we all benefited from the experience. In fact, I myself am indebted to the class of 2008. I couldn't have succeeded without them all there. Sure, we had professors who taught us a lot. They taught us so much. But I learned just as much from my peers, and their help was very valuable in my time here. I especially want to say thank you to Andrea for knocking me down a peg or two when I needed it and my ego got the best of me. And thank you to Kesa for being brutally honest and keeping us focused on what was most important for our learning. And thank you to Myron for keeping me organized. There were times I never would have made it through without his help. I know a eulogy may be a bit late for offering thanks, but I'm sure the class would understand. They knew I was not one for punctuality. It was actually a trait that we shared. The class developed some notoriety for being late, often arriving late to labs or lectures, getting papers in a bit behind schedule. But again, this takes me back to their remarkable ability to bring about change. Despite that chronic habit of lateness, when the end came, none were late graduating. And now they have passed on for this life at Pacific University. We all have a pretty good idea about where they're headed. In the next life, they'll be called upon constantly to demonstrate their skills in adaptation, their penchant for accepting and bringing about change, and it'll serve them well. You know, I was fortunate to spend quite a bit of time with the class of 2008. I was right there with them through all the suffering of the final weeks. But when the end came, as scary as it might have been, I can say with confidence and certainty that they were ready.